I am Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit, y'all. All right, it is Monday, March 28th. Man, March is pretty much over. Just started, right? Almost over. But, March got to go out with a bang. So, guess we got some things to get into. Now, I was trying to take some time off. And, just when you think you're out, they pull you back in. So I had to come out of my respite early. I think that it's important that I comment on yesterday's events. So I'm going to do that. But at the same time, I didn't post Cameron's Kitchen Friday. Let me make sure we're good here. So I'm going to do that. Yeah, we good. I didn't post the Cameron's Kitchen on Friday, so we did an early recording because we had the weekend events Friday and Saturday. But we're on the other side of that now. What's interesting is, you hope that you're making progress, and, folks here locally go to an event and learn a lot about race and equity. Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday evening, not even 24 hours later, we get the Will Smith incident. So we're going to talk about it today. We're going to get into it. Also, this, like I said, this is a special edition of Cameron's Kitchen. I'm going to make Professor Spaghetti tonight. This is a favorite of mine and a go-to and a favorite of my students. So, just a little quick backstory. The reason why my students like it is, and why we do food as far as G2 is concerned, is because of the food insecurity, right? And food literacy, right? Watching my students come to the college and, eat out of vending machines, which costs a lot of money because they don't have time, or they can't go back and forth, or whatever the case may be. Don't know any better. Whatever the situation is, it is. So food is an important one. So, my dad, was big on food. And so it's like, well, we don't really need a reason. We just gonna eat some food, right? And so that's what we would do. We would get our eat on and enjoy it. And it was pretty cool. So, like I said, we're going to do Professor Spaghetti for you tonight. And we're also going to get into this Will Smith situation. And, listening to the conversations, one is they hit in real time. And then also as folks have reflected on it, right? I wanted to do this last night. And I'm like, all right, well, it's late. People may or may not watch it. And then there's so many competing voices. I wanted to see if my perspective was going to change, or if there were people that maybe were thinking the way that I was. I wasn't seeing, I saw some of it, right? There would be some overlap in thought, but I wanted to kind of go in a different direction than the direction that has kind of been expressed. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do tonight. And so what we're going to do is we're going to explore the ramifications of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. We're going to look at, open media and some of the things that I think have got Will Smith down to this path. And we are here today. And those are things like the red table talk, right? They tell you that you shouldn't have your personal relationship out in the street. And I definitely believe that, especially not to that level, right? So it's fully on display for everyone. So you're airing out all your dirty laundry under the guise that it is therapeutic and that it's healing. And you can see that it has taken its toll over Will Smith over the course of the last few years. And if you've watched Will Smith's YouTube channel, he kind of is documenting the things that he's doing, and he's very vulnerable there, and talks about his pain and his issues and his challenges there. So, to me, this was only a matter of time. Would I have thought that it would have come out at the Oscars? No, but when you're crying out for help and you're struggling, these things will express themselves at the most inopportune time. And then in 2015, there's been a history of Chris Rock making jokes toward Jada Pinkett Smith, which I don't have any issues on the jokes. I'm not even going to go into the joke thing this evening because I want to focus on other things. People have talked ad nauseum on whether or not the jokes were appropriate or not, or distasteful, or yada, 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 this and that. I'm going to go in a different direction with that. Now, one of the things that we need to consider is, was this staged or was it real, right? So people still aren't sure on that. And my conversation tonight, it's not really going to matter whether or not it was real or if it was fake. I think the outcome is detrimental either way you look at it. It doesn't matter. They can come out together and make a joint statement, and the Oscars can come out with a statement and say, yes, we knew this was going to happen, and the damage has been done. And so we're going to talk about those meritorious manumissions. If it was fake, then, and this was staged, then staged for whose benefit, right? Will Smith won an Oscar that night, right? And he was, I think, pretty favored to win, so he didn't need to do that. Chris Rock had a special coming out on Netflix. He didn't need to do that. The Oscars have been under fire for several years now. So the only one that really stood to benefit from this display would be the Oscars. And so in that way, I see that as meritorious manumissions, right? And so if you feel that you want to be loyal and you want to help out the Oscars and you're going to stage this to bring it some buzz and try to bring it back, because they're trying everything right now, right, to breathe life back into the Oscars, then, maybe Will Smith and Chris Rock sign on to participate in this, which is problematic, right? Another big thing is manhood. When the conversations that I've heard, the conversations that I've had, when we look at similar situations, it's kind of split, right? Men look at men who react in this way, they call them simps, right? They can't handle their emotions. You think about when dudes are at the club and they step on your shoes or whatever, they pull up on your girl and they're ready to fight, right? So they're looking at it as it's a simp thing, many men, where many of the women, and again, this is social media, this is friends on my own social media, reading the comments and previous conversations, and many women look at it as, oh, well, he's being a protector and that's what he should do. If that was my husband or my boyfriend, then he better do that and stand up for me and whatnot. So we've got this separation on that. We're going to get pretty deep into that because I think that's really important. When you think about who could he slap, this is another one. Could he chose Chris Rock, and there's conversation about size difference, right? Oh, Will Smith is 6'3", and Chris Rock is a lot smaller, so he knew who he was picking on, someone that he knew that he can probably get away with that. And folks have put comparisons to Tyson or some other folks that can handle their own, and saying, well, he wouldn't do it to them. And what I would say is, culturally and historically, proxy violence, which happens in every community. But for us, in many ways, we are the only people that we can really strike out at, or strike out against, with little to none in regards to repercussion, right? So there's no way in hell he can attack a white woman. If he walked up, if a white woman, if what is that, Amy Schumer, whoever co-hosted the Oscars, had made that joke, and he walked up and slapped Amy Schumer, he would be sitting in a jail cell right now, right? Be canceling everything, pull all of Will Smith's movies off, pull all of his music off, right? And there's probably even discussion of that now. So there's no way in hell he could slap a white woman. Definitely no way in hell he could slap a black woman. No way in hell he can slap an LGBT QI plus woman, or LGBTQI plus persons. Wanda Sykes was also co-hosting. If she had made the joke and Will Smith came up and slapped her, again, he'd be canceled, right? And I would submit that he could not get away with slapping any of the nighttime comedians, Billy Crystal, any of the white male comedians either. So the only person that he could actually slap is another black man. That would be acceptable in the way that it went down. And that, again, goes to a lot of the different cultural issues that we experience and continue to suffer through. This conversation definitely comes at an interesting time, right off the heels of the Race and Equity Summit that we just had Friday and Saturday. But what I've heard a lot of is defending the honor of Jada Smith, defending the fact that, she has alopecia, and listening to the women speak. They talk about the empathy, even if these are white women, right? Like, I know that there are, black women, and their hair is just really important to them from a cultural standpoint, and this and that. So they're very empathetic and sympathetic to Jada, right? And again, many women are saying, that's what he should have done, and that's the expectation. But I didn't hear really anything on the side of men or women that were saying, you know what, man, Will Smith was, obviously he shouldn't have hit him, right? I think everyone is pretty clear on that. But they don't talk about the emotional damage. They don't talk about the mental health issues and the crisis that he's been under for the last several years, right? There's no empathy or sympathy there, right? But oftentimes when other groups, women commit crimes or make poor choices, then it's, well, it was how they grew up, or they had a bad experience, or it's always some other reason why they were forced to make the decision that they made. But with a man, especially a black man, that's not the case, right? He just was dead wrong, and that's it. And we don't look at the body of work that has brought him to this point. Now, he had a very good idea that he was going to win the Oscar. So what can make him lose it at a time when he definitely, or the probability of him winning was so high, right? He's at his peak now. There was nothing for him to gain by doing that. And so again, if it was fake, then the thought would be, well, he will be inoculated against this because he's Will Smith and he just won an Oscar, and it will come out later and it will build the buzz and people will want to come and see what happens at the Oscars next year, right? But as these things are taped loud and not cutting mics or cameras, and him dropping the F-bomb repeatedly, to me would say that it's not fake, right? But again, it doesn't matter. The damage has been done either way. And if we look and we see Let me see if I can share my screen here. My little poor little Mac has been acting up lately. Oh, that's looking up some stories to kind of talk about this situation. Man, I came across a story that I hadn't heard about, and it was like, okay, that's a bit much. But let's go ahead and pull this up really quick. This was earlier in December, okay? And if you remember what happened here, let's play that.
Baltimore police confirmed the suspect allegedly broke into his girlfriend's home this afternoon, shot and killed her. Police say he then drove to a townhome community in Columbia and killed his ex-wife before turning the gun on himself. Minutes before the second murder, he allegedly made a social media video admitting to what he had done and what he was about to do next.
And so we're not talking about this from the standpoint of what could be the potential outcome of a man who is in distress, a man who is at the pinnacle of his career, right? In Hollywood, the Oscar is the creme de la creme. So that's it. That he would make that ultimate decision. What would allow him to get to that point? And it doesn't seem like people actually really give a damn, right? They're more concerned with Jada and the joke than they are with Will Smith's mental state, that he would choose that point in time to lose control on international, not national TV, international TV, right? And so to me, I think that is the conversation, what Black men are going through, the laws and the culture that have us in a way where we feel trapped. Oh, hey, Sabrina, seemed like he was holding some things in, and that was the last straw. I agree with that. When I first seen it, though, dang, is he okay? Does he drink or do drugs? And the tears accepting the award. No, he's not okay. He's not okay. But for some reason, we just don't seem to have empathy for our Black boys and men. And as I played the video, this can lead to either him committing suicide because there's no way forward for him. He gives up, and we see that a lot. People have everything going for themselves in their lives, or they're just going through a bad point in their lives, and they're just like, I make a permanent decision to a temporary situation. You know, he could end up blaming her and murdering her, or it could be a murder-suicide, right? My kids are grown. They're okay. They're well-to-do. They have their careers. They're established. But she is the source of my problems. I'm going to take her out, and I'm going to take myself out, because once I do that, there's nothing else for me to live for. And we know that these things happen, and they happen a lot. Unfortunately, a whole lot. And if we look here, I'm not going to play any of the videos for you because we don't need to, and I don't want to get too far off topic. But as I was looking and doing the research, all I typed in was murder-suicide of wife. And the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. So I believe that Will is having a mental health crisis, and that while we call him a simp or say whatever we want to say, and you know how he was stupid, and you know how could he, and make all of our judgments, this can be the end result of that, unfortunately. And for balance, these are women. Well, let me go back because this was pretty alarming too. This is the list of women who have killed men. So understand, this isn't one way. This is not one way. as I just scroll down here. So this is what can happen, you know. And then from an opinion piece, I don't think that it is a good idea for these open relationships. I think that typically what happens is it may sound all well and good, but there isn't usually balance in those relationships. And at some point, someone's going to feel some kind of way, right? Someone may be having a lot of access to having sex with folks, and the other person doesn't have as much access, and there's going to be an issue, right? Or the relationship goes beyond just a kind of a sexual relationship. And we see that a lot too. And so I know it's 2022 and we're all sexually freed. We can live how we want to live and to each his own. But I'm not really seeing a high probability of these relationships working out too well, not in the long run. So I think it's really concerning. I really thought that I'm a introverted person, and so I can be around folks for a little bit, being in the public, but I've got to pull away and recharge. So I thought I was going to get one more day, but like I said, these things happen, and then we need to talk about it. But it doesn't stop here. And for those that are looking at it like, yeah, he did what he had to do, he's supposed to protect his wife and stand up. Well, what about the future? So if Chris Rock makes this joke on a international stage at an award show, Will Smith comes up and he slaps him, you've already seen the memes that are just shooting through the internet. Inescapable, right? He can't escape him. His kids can't escape him. Jada can't escape him. Other comedians are going to make jokes and crack jokes. Folks on social media are going to crack jokes and pass judgment, right? Oh, you're a simp, you're this, you're that. So the worst thing that he could have done was what he did, right? Because this wasn't a thing where, you know what, I checked Chris Rock and now everyone else understands. Don't talk about my wife. Keep my wife's name out your mouth, and everyone's going to respect. No, they're gonna step on the gas now, right? Because they know what your button is. They know what your button is. That's why it's important for you to keep your composure or be very measured if you allow flashes of aggression or anger. For me, my aggression is very calculated. Now, I'm not saying that I have full control of my emotions at all times, but many times my aggression is calculated and very thoughtful. But this isn't going to make his situation any better. This is going to make it worse. And so again, if we go back to the emotional damage that he has suffered through the relationship, the entanglement, right? We came up with a whole new word from the Red Table Talk, and the relationship that she was in with her son's friend, right? Also, again, we could say no judgment. We all have judgment on people and things and items. So stop the cap on that. We all look at things and we're going to have judgment on it because it's really not anything goes. Maybe lots of things go, but it's not anything goes. And that's just the true facts of it. And if you watched the Red Table Talk and you went through that whole scenario of, the entanglement or whatnot, you could tell that Will Smith was struggling then and was very unhappy at that point. If you watch his YouTube channel and you see what he was going through, I think he was writing a book. He wanted to quit. He was angry, right? So he's trying to work through these things, and he's trying to work through these things on camera. And Jada clearly is also working through things. But again, having your business out there is not recommended. It could be very damaging. But I think this makes the situation worse. On top of that, again, freak accidents happen. So, again, we're assuming this was real. And he goes up and he slaps him. Well, we're wearing our dress shoes, right? So what if he slips on stage and Chris Rock hits his head, gets a concussion, or he dies? I mean, something that severe. There's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother scenario, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, right? That can happen. You know, our boys and our men are so confused. And I think about, what are mothers telling their sons they should do in this situation? Mothers, what are you telling your sons that they should do if it was you, or if it was his girlfriend or his wife? Do you support what Will did? Do you tell your sons, oh yeah, if that happened to me, you better do the same thing? That's what I expect. If that's your wife, then you better do this and you better do that. What do girlfriends and wives tell their men? Like I said, looking at the comments, many of the women were on the side of, yeah, you go. Protect. That's what you do. On the other side of that, men typically say to boys and men, then you're being a simp. But what's interesting is in that scenario, we're told we're being a simp if we make that decision, but yet so many men make those simpish decisions, right? Oh, you stepped on my shoes at the club. You're hitting on my girl at the club. And now you're ready to fight. You're ready to kill somebody. So we act very simpish in a lot of scenarios. And what does society say to boys and men? Right? It's toxic masculinity. But it's only toxic until they tell you to be the attack dog. So our boys and our men are confused. They don't know what's right. They don't know what's wrong, how they're supposed to go forward. What was the right answer? Right? They can't win for losing. Let's go in the kitchen and get this food going. I want to eat today at some point. So let's go on in there. Put this on down. But they got to do something. I'm gonna heat up my coffee here. Let's see. Got a new camera, so now it's got these motion on there. Kind of cool. So I can hang out in the kitchen, do what I got to do, and it'll follow me around. So I kind of like that. But what do we tell our boys? I think they're so very confused. I'm gonna go ahead and get my water boiling. So I put some water in here already. Little bit of oil so my noodles don't stick. You can see right here, I've got my ragu. Usually I use chunky, whatever that other brand, Prego. I like the chunky. Oh, that's not hot enough. But for whatever reason, they didn't have any chunky when I went to go and get it. So I've had this for a while. The secret is the Jimmy Dean maple. That is the secret right there. So I do 2 pounds of this, so 2 of these. This is I think less than $2. I get the thin spaghetti. Now I rip it into thirds. I do not like spinning spaghetti noodles and getting spaghetti sauce all over me. So if I break it into halves, to me it's still too long. But if I break it into thirds, sorry about that. If I break it into thirds, then I'm able to get a nice little bite size on my fork with the noodles and the meat and the sauce, and it's cool. I can keep it together. Now you can put whatever extra vegetables you want in there. I'm just going to make some broccoli on the side. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the steamer. Matter of fact, I could probably put it in there now, but it won't take that long. I'll wait actually until it starts boiling. And I can start frying my meat also. So I'm going to go ahead and get my meat going. One of the things that I asked Dr. Joy DeGrew on Saturday is, what do we do with our boys, right? Our children. Our children are suffering, but at the same time, we have so many young parents, and even many of our parents who aren't young, right? Parents who are in their 40s that didn't have sound parenting, that are struggling. Our kids are the way that they are because of the parents, right? And so if we, as an older generation of parents, parented our kids in such a way that they parent their kids in a way to where they're at now, these millennials and younger, then it's no surprise that we're in such a bad state. And part of what her answer was is that we have to work on the entire family simultaneously. So it's great if you're an organization that works with kids. It's great if you're an organization that works with young adults. But ultimately, we need to try to find some ways to work with the entire family together. And I definitely agree with that sentiment, something that I've been saying for a while, that unfortunately, you send your kids to school, and sometimes your kids at school, that's the safest place for them, right? They love being at school. They've got their opportunity there. But the school can be problematic too, as we know, for our black kids. But again, your kid's at school from 9 to 3. And that's 6 hours. And you take out lunch, recess, you take out assemblies, changing from one subject to the next, and everything else. And your kids might be getting 3 hours of learning per day. Then you take out half days and teacher conference and holidays and everything else. Your kids are hardly in school. And again, we're not in an agrarian society, so we don't need our kids to come and pick crops for us in the summertime. They should be in school all year long. But again, it depends on what school that they're in and what they're learning, what they're being taught. And is the school being harmful to them? But assuming that the school is a good place for them, well, they're at school. Who's working with the parent? Who's helping the parent grow, mature, work on their issues, work on their emotional damage, their mental health issues, getting them stabilized so that they can be effective parents? Who's doing that? So I think those are the things that need to happen. And that's why I've been so critical last year of the church. Because the church, to me, used to be that. And now the church has kind of an anything goes mentality, just like anything else, right? Pretty much, you can do whatever you want. Church was very hard-lined on what they defined as sin and, shacking up. I know my dad believed you couldn't shack up even up until the day that he passed away. And if he was still here, he would still believe that. But we're in an anything goes society now, unfortunately. And so the church isn't going to hold its congregation accountable. And oftentimes they don't hold themselves accountable, right? Anything goes. So like I said, what if, Chris Rock had a glass jaw or he fell and this situation got worse? What if Chris Rock pressed charges? What if the police press charges? Like typically, if it's a domestic violence or an assault, the woman or the man doesn't have to press charges, right? The state can press charges themselves. So while they said yesterday Chris declined to press charges, it's not to say that the state couldn't decide to press charges against Will Smith, right? I mean, it was on camera. Kind of a problem. The big one is this. Will Smith has been probably one of the most squeaky clean heroes in the black community. From the his rap albums and not cursing, Happy Go Lucky Rap, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, being an action star. You know, there was no drama or issues, no jail or drugs or none of that stuff, right? And even when his wife had her entanglement, he even saw through that. Helped out a lot of folks. You heard the story on what he did uh, for the actors and actresses on King Richard, right? He ended up giving them money out of his own pocket because they felt like they were underpaid. Well, this diminishes his power, his influence, his ability to help others. There's conversations of kicking him out of the Oscars, not allowing him to come back. There are people that are asking to have his Oscar taken from him. You know, that's pretty hardcore. Take his Oscar. You know what? I bet that's what it was. I took my camera off and I lost my sound there. So I'm sure my sound will probably come back on now. All right. You know what? I bet that's what it was. I took my camera off and I lost my sound there. That's what that was. All right. So I just need to. My sound will probably come back on now. I just need to mute my camera. All right. You know what? I bet that's what it was. I took my camera off and I lost there we go. There. That's what that was. All right. So I just need to. My sound will probably come back on now. I just need to mute my camera. All right. Thank you for letting me know. Just sitting here talking to myself, looking like a crazy loon. Oops. So let me back up a little bit. When I came in here, what I was talking about was boys and men being confused. You know, what are mothers telling their sons? From the things that I saw, is that mothers are telling their sons, yep, if that was me, you better do the same thing or do more. Or if it was your girlfriend or your wife, you better do the same thing or more. And for the women that are girlfriends or wives, they're like, yeah, my husband, my boyfriend better stick up for me like that. And I've seen that on my own social media posts. I've seen that on, other people's posts. And it seems to be pretty split, you know. Women like that he stuck up for her in that way, while men called him a simp. And so that's typically what boys and men are saying, right? That he was being a simp, that he shouldn't have done that, and he shouldn't have done it. But it's that being over emotional, allowing yourself to allow your emotions to get the better of you, keeping it 100 when keeping it real goes wrong. It's really about it. So I got my noodles in there. You saw I broke them into thirds, like I said, so that those noodles don't spill all over me. So now that I got my noodles in there, I'm gonna go ahead and steam my broccoli so I don't cook all the nutrients out. And I'm browning my secret weapon, which is my Jimmy Dean maple. Getting that all good and browned. And I gotta brown it by itself because I don't want it to burn, right? Yeah, I like this little camera here. Kind of follows me around. Alexa, set a 8-minute timer. Usually takes about 7 to 9 minutes for your noodles to be al dente. Using my steamer a lot more. Shout out to Kendra for that. I'll go ahead and season my broccoli here in a minute. Haven't really fully decided what I was going to put on it yet. I don't really care for broccoli like in my spaghetti, so I'd rather just have it on the side. Now you can have a nice side salad or your rolls to go with your spaghetti. Tonight I'm going to put broccoli on the side. But I think about our boys and our men, right? There's no right answer. For them, they're in between a rock and a hard spot. So if the women are saying, yep, that's what you got to do, you got to protect, and the men are saying that you're a simp, society is saying that it's toxic masculinity. But in the case of this situation, then, that might be okay. What are boys supposed to do? And when they don't know, and they're not taught how to manage their emotions, and it's a wonder that we see all the violence that we see in our community. And we see a whole lot of it, right? You're in the club, step on my shoe, we're ready to fight. You hit on my girl, we're ready to fight. And we don't even fight anymore. We just kill now. And now we don't kill, we kill on social media. Oh, no, we don't just kill on social media. Now we might kill your parents, we might kill your grandparents. You know, there was a woman whose son was murdered, I think the last year, and then on the anniversary of his death, the mother visited the gravesite and they killed her. Right? So he's dead, he's gone, and it's still not enough. So where does that come from? Where does that come from? To me, it comes from the confusion and the chaos. If Chris Rock had fallen, or if he had a glass jaw, and Will Smith broke his jaw, or if he fell because he's wearing those nice shoes, hit his head, hurt himself, he's in jail, right? Worse. He's done. He's definitely done. If Chris Rock decided to press charges, be a huge issue. If the state and many of the domestic violence cases, right, they don't need the woman to bring charges. They don't need the man to bring charges either, although that rarely would ever happen, right? Where the state would bring charges against a female that didn't want to testify, or against a male, against the female because the male didn't want to testify, right? We're kind of laughed at if we are being physically abused. You know, just man up. What's that little girl going to do to you? You're so much bigger than she is. So that doesn't typically happen. But in the situation where there's domestic violence and the woman she may be too afraid, the state can actually pick the charges up, right? So right now, they said, well, Chris Rock doesn't want to press charges. That doesn't mean that the state or the city couldn't, right? They could do that. But the big one is it diminishes his power, his ability to help other people. He's helped so many people. He's lived a life over 30 years. For many people, their entire lifetime, they've grown up with Will Smith being on television. Right? The Clean Rap, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, all of the movies. His kids both grew up to be good kids, good business kids in the industry. And even when he went through the entanglement, or his wife went through the entanglement, he stuck by her. As nasty and as messy as that got, I mean, literally as perfect can be, he's pretty much been that. And now his power is diminished. There are people that want to take his Oscar away. There are people that want to ban him forever from the Oscars. There are people that want him to go to jail. And so again, I don't want to focus on what everyone else seems to be focused on, right? The joke about Jada. And as I was saying before, she has the red table talk. You know, Jada gives better than she gets. So it's not about her not having a voice or her being weak or being picked on. And the empathy that I've seen has been for her, right? I haven't seen this empathy for Will and his emotional damage over the last several years. So what could have brought such a perfect person, and in a lot of ways, in front and from behind the camera, because he's lived a lot of it as an open book, to get to that point where he loses it on international TV. There's been sympathy for those that were there for their Oscars, right? Because a lot of the attention was taken away from them winning and on to Will Smith and the incident. So a lot of empathy for everybody, except for this guy. I am cooking. That's right. It's Professor Spaghetti tonight. I'm doing a special episode of Cameron's Kitchen. I'm making Professor Spaghetti, a favorite of so many. I mean, Professor Spaghetti is actually in a cookbook. You know, it's the truth. It's real. It's the one thing that I can make really well. Well, I make a mean Korean barbecue salmon too. But this I've been making for a long, long time. And that secret ingredient, Rev, is the maple Jimmy Dean sausage. Got to have 2 pounds of that sausage up in there. Gives that spaghetti a sweeter taste, right? The hamburger meat, you know? I mean, I've had good spaghetti with the hamburger in there, but this just sets it off. It's a big hit. And at this point, the way meat's running, it might even be the same price or cheaper now. Who knows? Because usually the Jimmy Dean sausage costs a little bit more, and I make big batches of it. And I'm usually like feeding my students or, you know, other mass quantities. But yeah, we're going to do 2 pounds of the maple Jimmy Dean. 4 pounds of our sauce. And I used about maybe a 1 3/4 pound of the angel hair noodles. So I put that all together. Send you a bowl? Okay, I'll get you a bowl up there. Alexa, cancel the timer. So, like I said, 7 to 9 minutes for these to become al dente. Set my little timer. They're looking pretty good. You can't really see it, but they feel kind of al dente, just kind of in my spoon. You got to make sure that you put a little oil in there so your noodles don't stick. If I can lift this high enough, you can see my noodles are just kind of falling off, right? They just fall off. And breaking them into thirds really just allows you not to get that spaghetti sauce on your clothes. Plus, you know, I'm wearing ties all the time. I don't want my ties to have to go to the dry cleaner. Sometimes that sauce stains. So at the same time I'm doing this, right, I'm going to turn down my meat because I need to add my sauce. But when you put the sauce in, your sauce is going to splatter everywhere. I got to make sure I get my big lid out, which normally I already have out. So I'm going to turn this way down. We're just going to let it simmer. But this thing gets real messy. So I'm going to go down to maybe like a 4. I'm going to go ahead and pour my sauce in there. And you know what's funny is back in the day, I would watch people put the sauce in, right? And I would just throw it away now. And I'm watching people put water in there and shake it up. I'm like, oh, why would you water down the sauce? It don't water down the sauce. These jars are really great too. Like if you do fry foods, this is a great jar to let your oil cool down. Put it in a funnel. Easier to dispose of. So just kind of FYI on that. All right. And now I need another colander. Put that lid on there so I don't get that splash. Since I'm steaming my broccoli in my steamer. I love a little steamer because I can just put it right on top. Works out really well. I'm going to turn my eye off. Oh, I'm supposed to be tasting my noodle here. I think that's about done. Let me get one more. See, it's just like slipping through the slotted spoon, which is perfect. Just how you want it. Last thing you want a big old chunk. Ooh, that's hot. Ooh, I done dropped all the noodles on the ground. That's a hot noodle, boy. I'm gonna put the noodle right here. Let that thing cool off. Almost dropped my spoon. But yeah, that really does compromise his ability to help himself, to help his family, and to help others. Right? Doing the Venus and Serena or King Richard story, you know, that was you got to advocate for those things. And Venus and Serena didn't even want to put their name on it until the very last minute, right? Because they wanted to see how it was going to turn out. So that's really important. So he's going to lose power there. He's going to lose quite a bit of power. And what is he supposed to do? I hear people, men saying, well, you know what? If he wasn't being such a simp, he should have left when, she was with her son's friend, right? And a lot of folks really take their marriage vows as I would say they don't take them serious, but they really want to keep their marriage together. And I think in his experience, he didn't want to have a failed marriage for himself, for his kids, and that he was going to work through it, as tough as it is. And so that's not easy when you decide to stay in a relationship where there's infidelity or violence. And it's not anyone's place to tell someone else what they should do. I mean, you can give them some advice, but you don't have to live with that person. And I see that a lot too, which is what has kind of changed my thought on infidelity. For some people, it's a super deal breaker. For me, I feel like if you're going to do that, and these are my personal views, you shouldn't put it in the other person's face. You shouldn't bring home no babies, and you shouldn't bring home no STDs. If that's what's got to happen. Other people will say, well, then if it's got to be all that, then you should just divorce. And, obviously that's an option. But a lot of times there's kids that are in the relationship. It may be a season. And we can try to shame and guilt men all day long and say, well, they shouldn't want sex and sex ain't important. And there's so many other things that are important. But we're not going to bag on men because they have their wants and their needs. We're not going to diminish that. And so he stayed. While it was going on, whether they had that agreement or not, like I said, I don't think the open marriage concept works. And we can say to each his own. But like I said before, we all make judgments. So that's just what it is. Keep it 100. There's some things that you ain't going to do. And there's going to be things that you ain't going to tolerate. And while you might even say it might be good, to each his own, there becomes a point when it impacts the community or it impacts society at large. And I think where we're at in regards to these open relationships and polyamorous relationships, I think it does more harm than good. And I haven't really seen any evidence of these relationships standing the test of time. And then the videos that I showed before, just the list of YouTube videos of men killing their wives and wives killing their husbands or boyfriends, that typically that's usually at the root of it, if not something else. So I don't think it works. And Rev, if you weren't listening earlier, what I was saying was, this is why I'm very critical of the church. Because the church used to hold this congregation more accountable in the past. And right now it just feels like anything goes. You can do whatever. Doesn't matter what the word says or how you're supposed to live. My dad, if he was still alive, would say, shacking up is a sin. You can't move in unless you're married. And he had, he's even moved, I think, on divorce, where he was more hardcore against it. But I think he softened in his older age on that. If it doesn't work, then you need to go ahead and he believed in marriage counseling and all that good stuff. But and finding someone who you're equally yoked with was important. But no fault divorce. I'm not happy, so I'm just going to end this. It's like ordering food. ordering some clothes. I don't like how this fits. I don't like it anymore. I want out. I think that's definitely hurt our community very much. And the cornerstone of the Black community, the church, once it got to the point where the church is like anything goes, for the leaders in the church, as well as the congregation, well, then what do you have? Or do you have anywhere where we're being held accountable? We just do whatever we want. And it's not a surprise that we find ourselves here. But I think it's important to look at both sides of the argument. I don't think it really matters on whether or not the slap was real or not. If you look at the opportunistic folks that use this as to push their agenda, right? Black men are violent, toxic masculinity, right? The feminist talking points come out. That whether it was real or fake doesn't matter. The harm and the damage was done. And there's no winner in this, aside from maybe the Oscars themselves. But now they're even taking heat because some are calling for them to take his Oscar away or to permanently ban him from the Oscars. Some still want him to be charged. So really no winners in that. And what has that done to the Black male image? You know, when you think about Bill Cosby and the Cosby Show and Claire Huxtable and how the Black community just held that up as the paragon of the Black family. Now I'm listening to Killer Mike talk yesterday and saying how, you know, the Huxtables and Bill Cosby was basically, you know, saying F you to poor Black Americans. And I was like, wow, what such revisionist history. Not that we can have something to aspire to, but that's what we do. And Black Mike, was it Black Mike, Killer Mike, you know, he has some sound advice and thoughts and advocation for Black folks. But what they tend to do, the dominant society, is they make us denounce our folks, denounce everything that was good. And whether you believe in the guilt or innocence of Bill Cosby, the Cosby Show did a lot for a lot of boys and girls growing up to show a stable middle class or upper middle class Black family, and to fight against the stereotypes that we still face even today, but that we were really facing back then. There wasn't a lot of examples of positive Black families. So to have that revisionist history, to say, oh well, you know, this was a bad thing, and what Cosby was doing, that's what they make you do, right? They make you denounce your own people. So two of our biggest shows, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Bill Cosby, Will Smith, well now, that needs to be destroyed. I'm surprised they're not calling for, still early, to have all of his music and movies taken down. Again, when does he get another A-list movie opportunity? There was talks of his son being the next Spider-Man, right? Miles Morales. But Jaden stuck up for his dad and his mom. And so on TikTok, he said, that's what we do. What else is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to denounce his father and say, no, my dad was wrong. He shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have defended the honor of my mother. Really? And so that may put his opportunity in jeopardy. And to play such a big role in the MCU is massive, right? Or for Sony. Spider-Man, huge. And he's young. They can play it for a long time. Big deal. How long what did it do for Tom Holland in his career? So maybe that opportunity is gone now because Jaden supported his father. Who was Will pushing behind the scenes and advocating for? To star in movies, to get parts in movies, to direct in movies. He just got done paying out of his own pocket for King Richard. The actors and actresses felt like they were being underpaid. He paid them an increase or a bonus out of his own pocket. Everything is now diminished. What does that do to the black family? For those that are against the traditional black family, right? This just goes to show, well, look, they can't do it. He's violent, toxic masculinity, right? They got a mess going on. It's a huge issue. And they just wait to tear down. Our younger folks are looking at it like, well, there's no point in it. Man, that broccoli is so tender. I tell you what, steaming the vegetables are good because you keep all that flavor, all the nutrients in there. I haven't even put seasoning on this. Delicious. It's delicious. And we know the black male image is constantly under attack. You know, I was sharing the other day that a lot of this mobilization in this county and many other counties came about because of George Floyd's murder. But since his murder, police brutality against black men has actually increased, not decreased. And so you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why is that? And what is that going to do harm or benefit? Because Will Smith ended up in this situation. Again, one of the biggest and well-respected black male stars in Hollywood. So what are they going to say? He's violent. He can't star in movies. He's violent. He can't be a role model for kids. He's violent. We have to take our endorsements away. And there will be no future endorsements. Or unless he's coming out against DV or something else. Kind of how they used Mike Vick to try to rehabilitate himself, right? They put him on the slave circuit of redemption. Folks are already asking for his Oscar back. Will he ever win another Oscar? You know, it's so interesting how folks are so quick to pull up toxic masculinity. But then many of those same people, when they want to be defended, are like, oh yeah, no, that's what he needs to do. So that's what he's supposed to do, but it's not toxic. Again, what are our boys and our young men supposed to do? When the men call him simp, and the women say that he's supposed to protect. When society says that he's toxic, he's in a no-win situation. And then the video I showed earlier, Will is hurting. Will's hurting. And we're concerned with everything else. Other people that had the Oscars ruined for them. The joke on Jada, right? These are jokes. And again, we're not going to have a conversation on the jokes or the impact. But what about his mental health? We've watched for the last 2 years what he's gone through. And we don't seem to have empathy. Same with Kanye. We don't have any empathy, right? And we can say, oh, we don't have empathy for rich people. I've heard that several times from a lot of black men, by the way. Oh, well, not only are you a simp, so you don't get any sympathy, but, you're rich, so you don't get any sympathy either. I think they were saying he's worth somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 million. So if he did divorce his wife years ago, he loses half. He breaks up his family. And he's talked about why he didn't want to get a divorce and why that's so important to him. And so he worked through it. But we know what's interesting about that too is, I heard a lot of women say, well, if he forgave her, then that should just be it. He should be done with it, right? He forgave her. So, Will shouldn't just be acting like a bitch now and be motivated or fueled by old stuff. So if he couldn't handle it, then he shouldn't have forgave her and he should have moved on. Do you know how many women who a man has cheated or done something in their past, and they say they've forgiven them, and as soon as the fight comes up, or it could be some random shit, someone else can do it, and then that comes to the forefront again. It's like, man, I didn't even do anything. You're so hypocritical, And that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing. But he made the decision to be there. And is he not the ideal man, the ideal husband, the ideal father, the ultimate provider? He was already at the finish line when they met, right? He was already on the Fresh Prince. So he was already on his way. He only got better and bigger as he went along. Their kids are both successful. She was able to do and have whatever she wants. She's even safe enough to do a show like the Red Table Talk, which most people would get labeled as a pariah for a lot of the things and views that she espouses. But she's able to do that under the safety of him. Both kids, musically inclined, movies, businesses. I think they got nonprofits. I think Jaden's got his water, right? I mean, these guys are just doing the thing. What more could you ask for him? It's one of the things of, you could do 9 things perfect. That one thing that you do that's wrong, and you're done. Can't come back from it. But we're not looking at his mental health. We're not looking at his mental health at all. The empathy, the sympathy for what he must have been going through. And, I'm not going to show the video, but because I'm sure you've watched it over and over and over again. But if you rewind it, he was laughing at the joke. And he looked over at Jada, and she was not laughing, and she was upset. And that changed his demeanor. And it activated him into action. I talk about, women need cover. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And what cover is well, it's a lot of things. But what a short version of cover for me is you need guidance and leadership. I believe that women need that, right? From a man. I'm very, very much a traditionalist. And because my conversations are usually centered around what women need, or how a healthy relationship would look, then I talk about cover in regards to what a woman needs. They need cover, right? Protection, direction from a man, not a male. So let's be clear. Just because you have twigs and berries doesn't make you a man. But at the same time, a man needs cover also from his wife, from his girlfriend. And what does that cover look like? That cover looks like not putting him in compromising situations, not putting him in compromising positions where he's trapped, when there's no good answer. You know, there are women that we've seen, especially during the era of the Karen, where women have written checks that their boyfriends couldn't cash. There was one that slapped a black guy at a NFL game. I think it was at a Steelers game, and got the boyfriend beat up for it, right? Because he didn't want to hit her, so he beat up the boyfriend. But she needed to cover him and not put him in that position. So you're at a bar, you're at a club, and someone comes up and pays you attention, and you smile, and you don't turn that down, right? And then your significant other is feeling some kind of way, and then it escalates. Now it's a problem, right? Cover goes both ways. Let's see how this looks. Oh, let me show you how it looks first off. That's the finished product. Cover goes both ways. And again, I only talk about it in one direction. Typically because of the conversation and the people that I'm having conversations with. Oh boy. That's what I'm talking about. I haven't made that in a while. There we go. Thank you for this food. That's delicious right there. Let me go back and retreat into the other room. Oh, let me get a couple more pieces of broccoli up on here. And I love the whole pieces of the broccoli. But when you steam it, oh, so good. All right. Here we go. That's what we needed to do. See, I was tripping before. There. No, that one. Let's try this. There we go. Yeah, Rev, this turned out real good. You're going to like this. Especially if you like the sausage. So my question for you is, who wins? Who wins because of this situation? And I would say at best, the only entity or person that could win are the Oscars, right? Because they've been suffering. They haven't had. They need publicity. They need, viewership is down. They've been accused of being racist and everything else, bias. So they're not really talking about the Oscars. They're talking about what happened, but still slated around the Oscars. They'll probably get a bump in viewership just off of what happened yesterday, next year, to see what's what. Racist, they're definitely winners in this because they're going to use that as their talking points to fuel toxic masculinity and black males, black on black crime, all the tropes. Listening to a few of them today. I'm not going to give them any air and give you any names because it's pointless. But we've heard that today. Black men lose because they're going to just continue to push the stereotypes and the tropes. And again, it's one of the best of us that has grown up in the media and has made it through unscathed all this time just to come to this point and have a misstep. Oh, hey, you need some, come on through, Shay, you want some spaghetti? Oh, let's see. Oh, Layla, everyone's texting me tonight. What's going on? Hey, Daddy, about 2 years ago, I made my first quilt. What? Oh, man. I don't know if y'all can see this, but my daughter she made a quilt 2 years ago, and she said it just sold on Grandma's site for $275. Go ahead, girl. Let me go ahead and email her. So proud of you. It's a talented little girl there. It's Daddy's girl. It's awesome. Black women lose. Black women need their black men to be in leadership positions, to not be torn down by the dominant society, to not be torn down by themselves, and not to be torn down by black women. So black women lose. Just as black men lose. The black family loses. Because everything is being done to destroy the black family, both externally and internally. We could do a SWOT analysis on the black family. We could look at the internal strengths and weaknesses, and we can look at the outside opportunities and threats. As we go forward, I will show you the studies that show that, actually black men are some of the most involved, or are the most involved in their kids' lives, make some of the very best parents. But that is not the stereotype that's out there, right? Broken homes, not there for their children. That's typically what is pushed out there, again, externally and internally. So the black family loses. Institutional racism wins. Well, it's toxic masculinity, not leadership material. I'm afraid, I'm scared. If that's the best of you and he's willing to become violent, you can no longer advocate. You can't push the envelope. No one's perfect. But this is a mental health issue to me. Again, and not just for him, but also for Kanye. I mean, you tell me if you were still in love with your wife and you got some dude texting you and saying, I'm in bed with your wife. What you thinking about that? You could tell him he's a simp. You could tell him that he should just get over it. He should have known what he married. So you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. All the little things that we say. But the heart is the heart. Simp or not. Right? That's hard. That's hard to see. It's hard to envision. And that's also out in the public. Whether or not he brought it on himself. There are several people that are at blame in that situation with Kanye. But will they take him from the award show because of the little music video thing or whatever he did, where he was, he had a little puppet that he was killing other dude. They break their tools when they're done. Elvis was having sex with an underage girl. Was he like 14 years old? But he's the hero. And they don't treat him like R. Kelly. Hell, they got a movie coming out about Elvis here soon. So that's okay. But not only are we going to break yours, but we're going to tell you that you got to break them also. And if you say that you support, then we're going to go ahead and destroy you. And the problem is that we don't support each other, so they can just knock us off a little bit at a time. As well, Marwan said such and such. I have to distance myself from Marwan because that's going to jeopardize my bag. Man, behind the scenes, I'm all for you, partner. But in front of everybody, I can't be for you. When every other group stands together and they don't allow and they don't stand for it. We could rally around Will and Jada right now, especially Will. But instead, we've spent the better part of the day on social media, on the phone, in person, just tearing them down. We don't have to do what we usually do. We could do something different. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. My final thoughts on this are, again, women need cover. Women need cover. Will is the head of household. And however they ended up into an open relationship, I think that's unfortunate. They're in Hollywood, so they kind of do those things. But as you can see, that doesn't typically work out too well. And again, if I need to say it over and over and over again, because this is such a trigger, that women need cover from a man, not a male. A man. Intelligent, wise, who can protect, who is not going to steer women down the wrong path. Women need protection. And in that same regard, men need protection from women, from their women. Women can't put their men into compromising positions. When you think about it, he laughed at the joke. She didn't like the joke, right? And you can see the look on her face. As soon as she started to get up, the cover is, Will, come back here. And she grabs him and she does not allow him to do that. From a selfish standpoint, she jeopardized the bag. The bag is in jeopardy now, right? Are they going to be on the street? No. But does he get another A-list movie? Who knows? Does he lose endorsements? Probably, yes. Is his image tarnished? Absolutely. Will Smith is a brand. The brand is tarnished. A woman must provide cover to her man, just as a man must provide cover to his woman. Because we're both going to make mistakes. And if she had pulled him or smiled through it, right? You're in Hollywood. He's a comedian. It's coming. But the bag's in jeopardy. Again, if he had slipped and fallen and really hurt himself, it's really in jeopardy. Protect the family. Even from a selfish standpoint, protect the bag. So you have to cover each other. Protect your meat and whole frame. Your money. Will didn't protect his meat. He didn't protect his money in that instance. He let his emotions get the better of him on international TV. He allowed his energy to go to a negative place. And he gave that moment in time a joke. And there have been so many worse jokes told about Jada, especially sexual jokes, right? Because of the, I was going to say the affliction. That split moment in time that he gave that his energy and attention has cost him money. Gentlemen, protect your meat. Gentlemen, find women that will help you to protect your meat. Women, protect your meat and protect your husband's meat or your significant other's meat. You're trying to grow. They put so much in jeopardy. You got a whole frame. I know it's hard to do. We get emotional, we get angry, we can lash out. Could be a bad day, could be the last straw. We don't know what was going on Will's day before them. But the biggest day in his career, and that's how it played out. Life is stranger than fiction. Find somebody who has your back and whose back you can have. First and foremost, so important. And try not to lose sight of that. What you're working for, what your team goals are. For our elderly men, I don't know what we're telling our young boys and our young men. But whatever we've been telling them isn't working. So many of our boys and men are lost. Alone, driven to gangs or crime, feeling unsupported. So elder men, what are you telling our boys? You just tell them to just swallow their tongue? Or are you giving them tools? Are you telling them that they don't deserve to be a bullet bag? That they're not supposed to just be used by the community? That that's what they're good for. That's what they were born for. That's what they were bred for. Just to serve the community and die. What are you telling our boys and young men? What are our church elders telling our boys and young men? For our younger men, when keeping it real goes wrong, that moment, that split decision, being macho, talking about what you ain't gonna allow, what you ain't gonna accept, being so triggered by inconsequential things. Oh, he called me this. I can't stand for that. This happened. He said this. And you've jeopardized everything because someone said a word to you. And quite frankly, someone lesser. We had a a client that we would pick up in a bad way, inebriated, racist as all hell, and would say some pretty vile things to our black drivers, to the point where we wouldn't allow any black drivers to pick him up. And some of our drivers, they felt some kind of way about it, and they should. But they allowed the words of someone in that position to affect their mental psyche. And it's like, even in your state, in your life, you somehow still have the ability to think that you can look down on me. And why would you give that energy or power? Take your power. Take the power over your emotion. Take the power on how you regard things. Some things just aren't worth it. Some things shouldn't even sit on the surface of your mind. Understand who you are as a person, to your family, to your friends, to your community. Understand that when it goes bad, there'll be very few people that will be there for you. So what the hell do you care what they think or what they say? I was told the other day that, oh man, they're talking about you. The conduit this and the conduit that. A lot of people have good things to say, but there's a lot of folks that got bad things to say about you. They don't like you. I love it, right? Because the saying is, if everyone likes you, then you're doing something wrong. And if you got haters, then you must be doing something right. But why would I give a shit what anyone thinks about me? You're not going to pay my rent. You're not going to put my daughter through college. You're not going to make sure that she's safe. You're not going to comfort her. You're not going to comfort me. Not going to do any of them things. So what do I care? I'm going to do me. Why would I give you power? I'm about taking power, not giving it. And I want more of the people that I talk to realize that. So when you see me in public and you don't speak, or you curl your little lips up all tight, you get that resting bitch face, I know that I have power and dominion over you. And I appreciate it, because I'm a powerful MFer. But all of you are. But even with that attitude, because Will had that attitude, but there's only so much that a human can take. And he had been taking it for so long. That it wears on you. You're in jail, and you're trying to protect the honor of your girl. You in jail and her legs are up, and someone else is on top of her. Well, oh well. I know you feel some kind of way about that. You're protecting her honor. Maybe she wrote her a check that your ass couldn't cash, or you decided to cash the check because you Billy Badass, and you end up dead or paralyzed. Her legs are up. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Protect your meat. Protect your meat. Find someone who's equally yoked. It's painful. It's not easy to walk away It takes a long time for your heart to heal. And you're angry. There's a saying that your worst day free is better than your best day in jail. The problem is that if you've experienced incarceration, the longer you're out, the longer you remember that pain. So you begin to take it for granted. You complain about trivial things that matter not. The simplest thing sets you off. But you could not have your freedom. You could not have your life. Young man, protect your meat. If you're in jail, if you're dead, if you're paralyzed, you can't protect your friends. You can't protect your family. You can't protect your girl. Do not put yourself into compromising positions. Don't allow your significant other to put you in compromising positions. Hold frame, have conversations. Talk about it up front, not after the fact. Be proactive, not reactive. Do you think the same? Do you want the same things? How are you going to navigate through struggles? And you hear a lot of people, you're going to grow, and many people grow apart. How do you keep yourself from growing apart? And do you allow room for change so that you can change together? Don't be a hypocrite. So many dudes, they will sleep with another man's wife or another man's girlfriend. And when that man is upset, you don't have to get upset. You ready to smash that dude. You ready to wreck him. But you smashing his girl. I was like, so let me get this straight. You sleeping with that man's wife, and you ready to wreck him. He's a victim in this situation. But then on the other hand, your girl or your wife goes out and cheats, and you ready to wreck the dude. So you ready to wreck the dude in either scenario. But you're the perpetrator in one of the scenarios. Well, how does that work? Make that make sense. Shout out to the Lapeef Network. They've got a Sunday show that they do where they're working on having black men come together. And the first rule is you can't have sex with another man's girl or wife. It's off limits. I think that's awesome. And it should go without saying. And obviously, if the girl tells you that she's single, there's nothing you can do about it. Not like you're going to run a background check on someone, especially as sexually free as we are now. Right? So you can get caught up into a scenario for sure. But you shouldn't knowingly go into a situation where you know that's an entanglement. Not a good idea. So I love that as that first thing. Don't be a hypocrite. For our young boys, I know you're trying to find your way. You're trying to make it make sense. Ask questions. Have conversations. You're smart. You're probably thinking in the right ways. Talk to different people. If you talk to 2 or 3 men and they're telling you the same thing, go find a man that has a totally different perspective. Talk to men. You probably have mostly women that are in your life. Talk to men. Gain some perspective. Think it through. Be logical, not emotional. If you even watch Star Trek, most of our youngins probably ain't watching that. But put a logical lens on it. Step back from it. Take your emotion out of it. Ask yourself, what do you have to lose? Even when you're doing dirt or whatever the situation is, you don't want to draw attention to yourself. So why would you draw attention to yourself? And its bottom line is bad for business. Logic, not emotion. For our women and mothers, if you're telling your sons, if you're telling your significant other, if you're telling your husband, yeah, you better protect. Yeah, that's exactly what you should do. He gets locked up. He gets brutalized or murdered by the police. He gets taken out by the op. Like I said, even from a selfish standpoint, it costs you the bag. It costs you your son. It costs you your significant other. It costs you your husband. So why would you tell him that? Don't have him putting his cape on for anyone out here. And there should only be very, very certain times that he would ever put his cape on in the first place. The bad guys wear capes too. And from a very selfish standpoint, women, you lose the bag. You lose your support system. You lose your son. Don't raise your boys to be simps, whether dad is there or not. Overly emotional is dangerous. It's destructive. And it's a wonder why, if you subscribe to post-traumatic slave syndrome, why it persists generation to generation. That's what I say. I think they did a study and they could show the trauma in our DNA, actually, which is a hell of a thing. But aside from that, you wonder how generation and generation, it's kind of laughable. Folks talk about, a lot of poor people too, we talk about creating generational wealth. Like, you gotta have generations to pass it on to, not a GoFundMe for every little thing you have going on, every little crisis that happens in your life. How are you gonna create generational wealth? Instead, what's created is a generational mindset of poverty, a generational mindset of destruction. So if you're like your parents and your kids are starting to turn out like you, what do you expect? And are you willing to change so that they don't have to live the life that you lived? And it's just getting harder out here. Or are we so selfish? It's like, nah, I got to do me. I've had it hard. They just going to figure it out. Damn. That's a cold one. So when do we break the cycle of that mindset that is so destructive? Why do only some of us escape the black hole of a poverty mindset, of a crab in a barrel mindset? I think what needs to happen is, I've shared with you the black male political agenda, and a lot of things need to change in regards to that. We need to change our laws. We need to change child support, child custody, divorce. We need to address homelessness and many other things. Matter of fact,
I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic and selfish and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.
all right, I'm going to leave you with the words of Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, the great Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. Black male political agenda. We'll be talking about that this year for sure. I just wanted to share a different perspective with you that wasn't centered around Jada or the Oscars or simping, but centered around the mental health of a man and how he has given his community so much. And in return, we should be wrapping our arms around him instead of finding all these different ways to ridicule and destroy, creating the memes, sharing the memes. Right? Everything we do, we can shut it down or we can help it grow. We can feed the beast. So ask yourself, did you feed the beast? Or did you try to kill the beast? Because if you fed the beast, understand that beast will come for your sons, will come for your husbands, will come for your brothers, will come for your nephews, will come for your uncles. And when they're done devouring them, they're coming for you. Empathy, folks. There's a different way. We have the tools. We must continue to support ourselves. I hear so many people talk about, oh, I want to do this in love. I want to do that in love. I don't see a lot of it. Or I see very selective love. Let's build, not destroy. I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. We'll see you tomorrow night.